So hey everyone, welcome to episode 5 of Mike Does Bodywork. I've had a couple of requests for this particular thing that we're covering today, which is buffing / polishing. And so we're going to be going over that on this very fancy Volkswagen Beetle that I just painted. So she looks pretty good. Just came out of the booth about 5 minutes ago. But there are a couple of things that are going to make us have to do some polishing and some buffing on it. One of the things is, when you paint a vehicle, sometimes you get these little pieces of dirt that just because you're spraying in an atmosphere and there might be something floating around in there, and the second my spray gun comes through like this, putting that paint down, if that's floating in its way, it goes, I am happily part of the car. No, you're not, I'm going to get you out. So there's other things that are kind of around here. There's one small one right there. There's another one right there, and another little one right there, and I don't really like the texture in some of these areas. So I'm going to stand out a lot of this stuff, go through the steps, show you what to do, show you how to buff, show you how to polish, what I do, what you can do at home, and from there let's just cue the music. Or the crickets. I don't know. Theme song, go. Now that either the crickets are done chirping or a theme song played with an awesome collage of Mike Does Bodywork scenes all together, hint hint, figured I'd go over a couple of things before we get started that I'm going to be using today. Now, I figure that you're probably not going to have a professional Makita buffer like I do, or DeWalt, or Milwaukee, or Porter Cable, which you can go out and even get a buffer like this from Harbor Freight. I think that you can get super coupons for them for like 30 bucks, and in fact I have one at my house for my personal garage because I have been known to forget things all the time here, and it's kind of bad if I'm supposed to buff someone's car at home on the weekend and I don't have a buffer. So whether or not you have a professional buffer like this, or if you have like a little orbital wax polisher like I also have at home, that was very slick. What you also are going to have are compounds and polishes. Now, when we're buffing, we're either cutting and buffing, or we're polishing, or we're ultra polishing. Most of the stuff that you'll do at home, you might use a really light compound, but most of the stuff that you'll probably do is just polishing to get some of that color back. Going over the stuff that I use here, 3M didn't send me this stuff for free, although if they want to, please do, but I use 3M products a lot. So we have the 3M wool compounding pad, polishing pad, and an ultra fine foam polishing pad. Here we have the 3M Machine It polish, and then the ultra fine polish. Now, if you notice a theme with 3M system, the pad is black, the cap is black. The cap is blue, the pad is blue, and then yeah, because it's white, I don't have the bottle for the compound. I just, like I always say, I should be ready, and I thought I was ready this time. I just have it in a bottle. So, now that we know that we have that defect on that Volkswagen Beetle over there, now we have to get it out. I can't just get it out by just running the foam pad over it, although I really wish I could because it would make my life easy. What I have to do is I actually have to sand it out. Now I have a various assortment of grits of sandpaper here. We have 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 3,000. So like you can imagine, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little hand nib block right here. I'm going to put a piece of 1,000 on it. I'm going to go over to that little defect, starting with 1,000, work myself all the way up to 3,000. That might be a little excessive for some people and think that that's a little too much, but I personally like it because it comes out really fast and you know that you're not going to have any scratches left behind. Because essentially all we're doing is scratch elimination whenever we're compounding and buffing. So let's take us through the process. So now, like I said, we're over here. We have the little defect that I want to get out right here. And I've already said I'm going to be starting with the 1000 grit sandpaper. So just putting my block on the defect. I'm just going to start in this area. And start to sand. Now, I'll know that the defect is out when you can't see it anymore. One of the things that I like to do too when I'm doing this is I'll make sure that when I'm using like my 1000 grit, I'll only sand in one direction. Because then when I go to my 1500, I'll sand in the other direction. And then when I go to 2000 in another, and then in 3000 in another. So therefore at the end, I'll know what grit scratches I might have had left if there's any scratches left. So therefore I'll know which grit that I still need a little more work on, like if there's still scratches that are going that way and I only did that way with 1000, I know that I need to break my 1500 back out and go through the process. But if they're going straight up and down like I usually do my 3000 with, I know that, man, I just need to spend a little more time on the buffer. So I'm going to take care of all these scratches and everything else that I want to do, and then we'll get right into the buffing. One of the other things we can use rather than doing it all by hand with those little blocks like I showed, or better yet, after I get all those little nibs with the little block out, in order to do the majority of the car quickly and effectively, what I like to use is a palm DA. What a DA stands for is a dual action sander. Rather than just spinning in an elliptical orbit, what it will also do is it has another axis that makes it kind of spin in a curlicue rather than just in a circle. That lets it get a much tighter orbit. This is what's known as a finishing sander, which means it has a 3/32 orbit rather than a 3/16, which is an aggressive sander. So if you're doing any sanding with a palm sander on your vehicle, one, you want to have this nice foam interface pad that you see here. Two, you want to make sure that you have a finishing sander, mainly for beginners, because you don't want anything that's going to cut fast or cut aggressively, because before you know it, your paint's gone and you're coming at me like, Mike, you said I could, and I'm saying no, I didn't. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run over the entire car really quickly with 1500 grit, because it's not that bad, and some 2000, and then we'll get to actually compounding the vehicle. So now I'm done with all of my sanding on the vehicle. I started with 1000 grit where it was really heavy, where there were a lot of like really those dirt nips that I talked about, or where the texture was a little rougher than I would have liked. I refined my scratches. I got rid of the 1000 grit scratches by using 1500 grit sandpaper, and then I got rid of the 1500 grit scratches with 2000 grit, and then I got rid of the 2000 grit with using 3000 grit and wet sanding. Now, if you're doing this at home in your garage, you're probably not going to use 3000 grit at all, because unless you're restoring a vehicle on your own and really interested in how to restore paint or how to paint it yourself and then fix it, I think a sheet of 3000 grit is about $5.44 per sheet, and a box is like $75. So I don't think that it's within just most guys who want to give their car really good paint, really good look really quick budget. Plus then 2000 grit is like $60 for a box, and it goes from there. Not to mention that the compound that I use, the 3M Perfected X2, is about, I think, $160 per gallon. So you don't have to use the 3M product like I am. It is a great product, and I've tried Norton, I've tried other stuff, and in the professional setting, I love the 3M. But if you go out to like your Farm and Fleet or your Napa Auto Parts or something and get a compounding or a compound, you'll be able to do the same effects. So what we're gonna do now is I have my buffer, I have my wall compounding pad on there, and just a note really quick. wool compounding pad is about as aggressive as you can get. It's going to cut quickly, it's going to cut through scratches quickly, and there's a lot of danger in burning through the paint if you just let it sit. Now, when I'm actually buffing, there is a danger that I can go through all the paint, because as you compound, you're actually taking a layer of the clear coat off to make it smooth. It's much like if your wife, or if you're a woman who's watching, if you use like an emery board on your fingers or something, or on your nails, to take them off and to make them nice and smooth. Same concept that I'm doing. I haven't thought of a way to make it easier to understand for guys yet, but I'm married, so I can say stuff like that. But because I'm taking layers of paint off, there is the chance that I can go through the clear coat. And if I go through the clear coat, that's it. As we like to say around here, game over, man. You got to repaint the entire vehicle, or the entire area. Not the whole, you wouldn't have to paint the whole car because you burn through on a door. But, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go through with the compounding pad. I'll do a time lapse so you can see how we go from, if you look here, it's just a little duller than the fender that's next to it. And so you might have a vehicle at home that has this dull paint and you're like, oh great. What you want to do is you want to take a compound, and if you have a machine polisher, great. Try to use the machine polisher like I'm about to do, or you can try very, very slowly to do it by hand. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the compound on there, I'm going to hit it with the buffer until it dries up and it takes it off. And that's going to start to leave a shine, as you'll see. And one more thing that you'll notice. You might be saying, Mike, you still have tape everywhere on the car. You're absolutely correct, I do. Because as I'm buffing, mainly through like right here where you have this fender that sticks out, as my pad's coming here, it's gonna hit. I don't want it to be hitting paint. Why don't I want that thing to be hitting paint? Because you guessed it, I don't want to take the paint off the fender. So we're gonna go from here. I'll set up the time lapse now. Hopefully you'll get a good music clip again. And then I'll check back in when we're ready for pop.
My pappy said, son, you're gonna drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln. Have you heard the story of the hot rod race when the Fords and Lincolns was setting the pace? That story is true, I'm here to say I was driving that Model A. It's got a Lincoln motor and it's really souped up. That Model A body makes it look like a pup's. Got 8 cylinders and uses them all. It's got overdrive.
So now that I'm done with the compounding, we can see the result. The shine, if I get all the extra stuff off, the shine matches the other panel. And overall, the paint job looks pretty good. But you're wrong. There's still swirls all in this paint. Like, if we were to pull this out in the sun right now, you'd see all these little, just like, it looks like swirl marks, like little ghosted images in the paint. You'll probably see that on vehicles all over the place. So what we have to do now is we have to put the polish pad on there. We did the compound pad. The compound is to remove any defect that we have. Now we need to polish out the swirls that the compound leaves behind, and it gives us a more mirror-like appearance. So, just a couple of notes for the compounding step if you're doing this yourself. 1, make sure you tape off all the edges around the panel that you're doing, even if you're going over from a door to a quarter like I will. I'm a professional, I've done this for years, I kind of know how to handle the buffer. 2, if you're using a machine buffer and it's spinning in an orbit, always make sure if you're on an edge like this, that it's spinning off of the edge. So have it tilted so that it's always spinning off. You don't want it spinning onto the edge and hitting it, because then that's how you're going to burn the paint off on your edges and you're not going to be happy. And 3, when I'm using the actual buffer, I'm passing each orbit 50% of an overlap to make sure that I get it nice and even. So I'm not going swirl mark and then trying to follow that other swirl mark. I'm going halfway over my swirls. I've brought a lot of paint jobs back from the dead, including an old 1900 style trolley that actually still drives around the city of Milwaukee that I restored. It's amazing what compound will do to a paint job. You just have to be patient, and when you're actually using your power buffer, you don't have to go screaming to the moon running at 9,000 RPMs like you're an F1 car going around Monaco. Take it low and slow like a good pork shoulder. Put it down to 1,000 RPMs and just slowly work with it until you get your confidence. Because it's If it takes you 2 days to buff a door and it looks great, it's better than trying to be a hero and doing it in 1 hour, and now you have 3 burn-through spots. So now we'll go through a time-lapse of polishing. I'll show you the polish, and then we'll go from there.
Got overdrive, just won't stall. With a 4-barrel carb and a dual exhaust, with 411 gears you can really get lost. Got safety tubes, but I ain't scared. The brakes are good, tires fair. Pulled out of San Pedro late one night. The moon and the stars was shining bright. We was driving up Grapevine Hill.
Okay, so now we're done with our polishing step, and to take a look at the vehicle again. This mirror has a very, very nice mirror appearance. So, now seeing compounding and polishing, there's one more step that I can do, which is an ultrafine polish, which is essentially the same thing. I just take a blue pad instead of a black pad and use a blue 3M liquid and go over the whole thing one more time, just pretty quickly, and then wipe off the residue that it leaves behind, and it gets it really, really, really ultra shiny. Usually you only have to do that though on like a black or something that's really, really dark, that's going to leave a lot of swirl marks behind. Or if you're trying to do a classic car and you really want to bring her up to shine. So if you're the at-home person and you're not using any of these products and you're like, Mike, I'm just using a little Ryobi and I want to just wax my car, it's the exact same concept. If you have 2 different pads that you can put on there, I think one's like a terry cloth pad and then the other one will be like a kind of softer pad. Put the wax on with one, going on 1 panel at a time. Watch the edges like I said already. And then after you get the 1 panel fully applied and the wax dries, take the other pad and buff all the wax off. And then sit back and admire your work. On this vehicle here, I'm going to put her back together. And we'll walk through it in the detail bay like always, and we'll be done with episode number 5. Alright, it's the next day. Just got this thing out of detail. She's ready to go. She's in our inspection tunnel. So now, as we always do, here's the big reveal. Maybe put it to some epic music or something. So that's it for another episode of Mike Does Bodywork. Thanks everybody for watching. You'll get some bonus footage after this of how to take scratches out of maybe a fender. And so, once again, thanks for watching. See you guys next time. So we'll call this bonus footage. Here I have my personal car. It's a 2016 Passat. It has a Volkswagen code LD7X, which is platinum gray metallic, or platinum gray pearl, I'm sorry. And it's a very, very hard color to paint. Now, being the father of 2 small children, as well as having a vehicle that's just in a driveway, occasionally life happens. And if you have a vehicle that has scratches like this, a good way to test to see if they're able to be buffed out is take your thumbnail on them, and if your thumbnail catches, sorry, it's too deep, it's into the paint. But if your thumbnail just kind of grazes over the top of the surface of the vehicle, of the scratches, that means that they can be buffed out. So really quick, I'll just go over everything that I did in the Beetle, and we'll get the scratch out really quick in just about a minute's time. So what I'm going to use first is my rubbing compound. Just put a little bit like that on. Now, like I said on the other video, I'm just going nice and slow. I'm always overlapping about 50%. now that I have the initial stuff out, I'll increase my RPM a little bit. And now, we'll look. The scratch is gone. So now I'll just use my polish pad, polish this up so I don't have any swirl marks left. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to take care of this is a lease. I don't want Volkswagen coming at me like, oh yeah, Mr. Baji man, you did not take your scratch out. Now we're going to charge you to paint the fender. So yeah, so I don't want that. So, alright guys, thanks for watching. Bonus features for buying the DVD. Yeah. Alright, see you guys next time.